All right, so in competitive gaming, there is a constant race to be the most competitive, the most, to have the best stuff, to have the best controllers, to have the best console, to have the best audio, to have all the things that make you the most competitive player in the game. However, one of the things that we run into pretty commonly is what is the best versus what's actually the best for you. And I think one of the things that we really don't get to talk about a whole lot is kind of the variety in and uniqueness that everybody who plays the game brings to the game. Everybody is different. Everybody has a different, they have a different brain, they have a different head, they have a different hands, different life experiences, different ways of playing the game, and all of those things kind of affect whether or not, a peripheral is the best thing for you, right? In controllers, we have, the PlayStation 5 controller has a lot of advantages, and people will say, well, it's the best, but it's a big controller. There's a lot to this, right? And you look at an Xbox controller in comparison, and they're smaller. It's hard to say. You can't see on the camera. They're smaller. And then you look at the PlayStation 4 controller, it's even smaller than the Xbox controller, right? And so people with different sized hands actually will find different preferences between these controllers and say, well, the PlayStation 4 controller is actually the best because it fits my hands better. Even though it might not have the polling, it might not have, enough buttons, it might not have the most accurate triggers, whatever the case may be. If it fits your hands and you can hold it better, then it's the better controller for you at the end of the day. The same thing happens with, consoles. The same thing happens especially with how we hear the game. And audio has really become kind of one of the big factors, one of the big things that people want to focus on in Call of Duty, in Warzone specifically. It used to be in Warzone 1, the audio just really gave you what you needed to hear. Footsteps were super loud, directionality was good. There wasn't a need to really do anything with audio except plug in a half-decent pair of headphones and you'd be able to hear what's going on. In Warzone 2, they really kind of changed that. They switched things up and they actually have tried to use the audio to create a more worldly, lived-in, realistic experience, which is great, especially if you're playing campaign or you're playing, single player with your buddies or zombies. However, in a competitive mode like Warzone, having this audio is not good. It's not a good experience for people playing it because they can't hear the important things like footsteps. And so that's led to kind of like a ballooning of audio conversation, right? Everybody has opinions on what's the best hardware to buy, what's the best software to use, should you use software, is it allowed, is it not allowed, what are the best settings? And you go to any corner of the internet, whether it be Facebook or Reddit or Twitter, or you go on Twitch and you listen to streamers or YouTube, and you're going to end up with a lot of opinions and a lot of people telling you that this is the best thing to do. This is the best headphones. This is the best audio mix. This is the best setting in the game. You need to have this software. You need to spend money on an audio DAC so that you can hear the game. Okay? We've all done this. Well, most of us. We all buy headphones, we all buy headsets, we buy IEMs, we buy whatever the case may be. Whatever it is that we think that we need. And the thing that we focus on with this for most people is they look around, they look at reviews, they look at professional reviews, they look at comments, they take polls, who's using this, and the reality is none of those things are really going to be good at telling you what's good for you. There's definitely different quality levels, right? You can have a really bad headset that just kind of sounds not great for everyone. And you can have really good headsets that sound, in theory, great for everyone. However, that's not always true. Here's the problem. As I said at the top, we're all different. We all kind of perceive things like sound differently. We all have different sensitivity to motion. Some people are very sensitive to motion, so a high frame rate actually helps them a lot more than other people who really don't have, their brain just doesn't process motion that quickly. So, the difference between 120 and 150 frames, they don't know the difference, but other people, they will. Audio is no different, right? Everything from the shape of our ears to how well we've protected our hearing over the years. So if if you spent your youth going to rock concerts and hanging out in the club, you probably are not as sensitive to audio. Age also is a factor. Younger people have better hearing than older people. So don't blame me. I'm just the messenger on this one. It's a fact for those of us of the older side of the gaming bracket. Our hearing's just not as good, right? It's not as clear. It's not as crisp. We just don't have the ability to hear frequencies the same way that someone who's 20 does. So as a result, it's really hard to sit there and make recommendations and say, oh, well, this is the best. You have to use this set of headphones or that set of headphones to hear the game properly, because everybody's different. And I think this is something that's just really not explored very well, of like what makes a good set of headphones and a good set of or iPod or earbuds, iPods, a good set of IEMs or earbuds, right? It really comes down to how well it fits you and your body and your hearing and your needs as a player. When you look at things like, so I've used this website before. I've talked about this before, called Squiglinks, and it was brought forth by brought to my attention by a YouTuber named Gadgetry Tech. And in it, they look at, it's a place where audiophiles and giant audio nerds can get together and test frequency responses of different headphones and different earbuds, and kind of come up with a profile of like, all right, so on paper, how is this going to sound? What, is it really responsive to lows? Is it bad on the lows? How does it handle highs? Where does it sit in the mids? And then you can take that information and you can kind of get a good idea of like, all right, well, if it's really responsive in kind of the higher end of it's going to, you might have really crystal clear like vocals and higher end sounds, but it might not be quite as responsive in the low end. And you can kind of look at these graphs and get an idea of what you're going to get into. And then, you can kind of use that to understand how you need to balance audio, when you're playing and when you're setting up the game. But I've run into, so I have moved away from, the Astros or the Steel Series headphones, and I've gone to IEMs mostly for comfort, and also because I think they respond better to my ear shape. I tend to hear better with IEMs than headphones, and if I wear them all day, the headphones get hot and sweaty, and they give me a headache from pressing on my head. IEMs don't do that, which is great. However, what makes a good IEM? Right? What makes it, what is the right one to get? What's the best one to get? And so, again, dozens of YouTube channels, comments everywhere. You can find 100 different opinions on it. And so I wanted to look at Squiglinks and see, what is going on. And as I kind of get my PC back up and running after I did some hardware changes, I ran into the question, I ran into the fact that I don't like the way the audio is sounding. It just sounds mudded right now in my IEMs, and it didn't sound like that before. So I wanted to see what has changed. Is there something that I need to adjust? And I decided to pull some profiles from different people, and I kind of wanted to show these. This is kind of the catalyst of this video. So what you have here is you literally have kind of the sound profile, all of these colored lines, the red, the dark blue, the light blue, the dark blue, and the green. These things are all different profiles of the exact same headphone or IEM set. Like, this is my IEM, and depending on who's measuring it and how they're measuring it, it's completely different. Look how wildly different some of these tracks are. Look at the high end, and nobody agrees on how these IEMs are responding. There's no agreement whatsoever. And I found 10 more that are all different. Everybody measures it differently. It's supposed to be science. It's supposed to be, how well does it measure? You push the button, you measure it. Here's how it works. And you get 10 different people doing it and 10 different responses. So at the end of the day, when you go and you look around and you try to decide, hey, do I need to change my headset? Do I want to get better audio? Do I need a better controller? Right? Is my console out of date? Do I need to upgrade that to have a better experience? The end of the day, it's really hard to sit down and be like, yeah, you need to buy this aim controller for $300, which I highly recommend, code Subone. But it's hard to say that you have to do that to be better, because this PlayStation controller might not fit your hand well. Your hands might not grip it well. You might not be able to reach the paddles or the buttons comfortably versus an Xbox controller. This might sit really comfortably in your hands. And you know what? The features that the PlayStation 1 has don't overcome the Xbox, or vice versa. The only way that you can know if you have if you have the right set of headphones or the right controller or the right whatever piece of hardware it is for you to actually sit down and try it. And that is the hardest thing to do. Because if you can't try it, you're going off of other people's opinions on how it works for them. And I think it creates this like sense of the meta of whatever it is, controllers or audio equipment or monitors or whatever it is. At the end of the day, it's about how it works for you. And that's something that I think you really need to dig into when you sit down and decide what hardware to buy. It's not the reviews. It's not it's not what everybody else says. It's what works for you. And you have to kind of tune out that noise, because people will tell you, you got to drop $300 for a pair of IEMs, or you got to drop $300 for a nice aim controller, which I think is great if you can. Code Subone. But I don't think it's for everybody, and I don't think everybody needs it. And sometimes the controller is just not the right fit for you. And that's okay. That doesn't mean it's bad. That doesn't mean that you've made the wrong choice. That just means it's not the right fit for you. And I think more people need to spend time trying to decide, trying to test out, trying to feel these things, trying to get your hands on a controller and try to get your, go to the store, try to use headphones in the store, try to see if they have demo models, see if you can, get something on Amazon that you can return if you don't like it. Because going by what somebody else tells you is the best is probably going to lead you down the wrong path, and you're probably not going to ultimately be as happy as you would if you just tried a bunch of different things and went with what works best for you. That's what I got for you today. Kind of a short one, but hopefully as you go forward and you look for a new controller, you look for a new monitor or pair of headphones, give it a try, maybe save a few bucks, maybe spend more than you intended, but get what works for you. Catch you on the next one.